Welcome to Seeds of Thought. Today I want to discuss why most people don't design their life. They inherit it. Let's start with something uncomfortable. Most people think they're making decisions. They're not. They're complying. They wake up, respond to obligations, meet expectations, manage consequences, and repeat, all while believing they are choosing their life. But choosing requires contrast. And most people have never built an alternative future clear enough to compete with the one they're already in. So the default wins, not because it's better, but because it's familiar. This is the silent problem affecting millions of capable, intelligent, hard-working people. They are living inside a future that was assembled for them by circumstances, culture, family pressure, financial gravity, and time. Not designed, not challenged, not questioned, just accepted. And once a future is accepted, behavior locks in. The pain isn't, "I don't know what I want." The pain is this: I feel like my life is already decided, and I'm just managing it. That feeling creates quiet resignation. People stop asking dangerous questions. They stop imagining outcomes that would require bold restructuring. They stop believing change is possible without blowing everything up. So instead of redesigning the future, they optimize the present. They improve productivity. They tweak habits. They manage stress. But they never change direction. And direction is everything. You don't get stuck because you're lazy. You get stuck because nothing in your future is pulling you forward hard enough to disrupt your present. So let me show you a different way to understand vision. Vision is usually described as a dream. That's misleading. Vision is not what you want. Vision is what your nervous system prepares for. Your body, mind, and decisions are constantly orienting toward an expectation of what's coming next. If the future feels predictable, your behavior becomes conservative. If the future feels narrow, your risk tolerance shrinks. If the future feels dull, your energy drops. Your brain does not move toward desire. It moves toward anticipated reality. Which means, if you don't consciously define a future worth moving toward, your system defaults to maintaining what already exists. That's not failure. That's biology. See, growth requires tension. Not stress, not pressure, tension. The stretch between who you are and what's coming next. Most people eliminated that tension years ago. They settled into a future that feels reasonable. Reasonable income, reasonable expectations, reasonable effort, reasonable disappointment. But nothing remarkable has ever been built from a reasonable future. A future that doesn't demand a new version of you will never produce one. So the solution is to build a future that disrupts the present. Here's the shift that changes everything. Stop asking, "What do I want?" Start asking, "What kind of future would force me to grow?" That question changes the game, because now the future isn't comforting, it's challenging, and challenge creates movement. Let me show you 3 phases you must apply to create change. Phase 1. Future definition, not goal setting. Goals are temporary. Futures are immersive. A goal says, "I'll try." A future says, "This is where I'm going." You don't need a vision board. You need a future narrative. Not poetic, not motivational, functional. Ask yourself, how do my days look in that future? What problems am I trusted to solve? What do people rely on me for? What am I no longer tolerating? If the future doesn't change your standards, it's not real. Phase 2. Identity pressure. Once a future is clear, it creates pressure. Not anxiety, pressure. Pressure to become more precise. Pressure to drop behaviors that don't fit anymore. This is where most people sabotage themselves. They say, "I'm not ready." But readiness is not a prerequisite. It's a byproduct. You don't feel ready. You become ready by moving. Phase 3. Behavior realignment. Here's a truth most people miss. You don't change habits first. you change what the future expects from you. When the future demands competence, learning accelerates. When the future demands courage, fear loses authority. When the future demands discipline, excuses sound childish. The future you commit to determines the behaviors you tolerate. Now you may be asking why this works and motivation doesn't. Motivation fades. Willpower burns out. Inspiration expires, but future pull is constant. When the future feels real, behavior reorganizes automatically. That's why some people seem unstoppable. They're not stronger. They're not more disciplined. They're responding to a future that won't let them stay small. Ask yourself this honestly. If nothing changed for the next 5 years, would you be proud of the direction you're heading? Not the effort, not the intention, the trajectory. If the answer is uncomfortable, that's not a problem. That's clarity. And clarity is the beginning of control. So here's the conclusion. You don't need more motivation. You don't need better habits. You don't need another system. You need a future that refuses to be ignored. A future that creates tension. A future that disrupts comfort. A future that makes stagnation impossible. Because once the future changes, everything else follows. Your decisions, your standards, your energy, your identity. You stop managing life. You start moving towards something, and that's when everything accelerates. You are not stuck. You are under-challenged by the future you've been living toward. Design a bigger one, and your life will have no choice but to follow.